Hello friends, my name is Shivam from DevOps Schools and I will help you to enable your learning process in various technologies of DevOps, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data and many more. This is our initiative to help you by sharing multiple tutorials and videos. And if you want any specific tutorials or any particular topic, then please do comment in the below comment section and I will help you with it. Also, please subscribe to our premium services on YouTube, which will give you access to more content and videos to enhance your knowledge about all these topics. Also, if you want me to help you with regards to the online trainings and classroom sessions by our qualified trainers, then please do write me at contact@devopsschool.com. Thank you.
You to create a we have a 2 running instance for now over here. Okay, so over here we'll click on launch instance, and when we launch the instance we'll have an option of selecting a VPC, and we will select a VPC. We'll have an option of selecting a subnet, whether you wanted to go for a private subnet or you wanted to go for a public subnet. Okay, so let's say any quick start. I'll select any of the image. Okay, over here. Still okay, so I'll say the free tier eligible. Yeah, next configure instance. So over here you see there's a VPC, so you can select the VPC which you created, Sony Date 3, and on when you select that you will have an option of which subnet you want to put this machine on. Okay, so when you select the subnet, if you select the subnet to private, that means this machine is going to be inside a private subnet. This instance will be launched on a private subnet. Okay, and once this instance is launched on a private subnet, you see that there's an instance metadata which is by default enabled. Okay, it says metadata version v1 and v2 token, or v2 is token always, so it's up to you. Okay, give me a second guys. Sorry. So you have a metadata version which we were talking about, IMDS1 or IMDS v2. So we have v1 and v2. There's like only v2 which has been required, token required information. So if you want that, that has been, by default metadata version has been enabled. Reason, I told you the reason before that, so that user can write their set of commands that they wanted to execute before this instance, sorry, after the instance has been set up properly and it's been in a running mode, then run this set of commands in order to install the required software. Okay, if you wanted to do that while the instance is up, you want to execute some of the set of commands that you will provide it over here. For that purpose, we enable the metadata. Okay, if it's disabled, you won't be able to write any information on this. Okay, so this is the instance metadata which has been turned on and your reverse proxy has been configured. Then you were able to then that was the time you was able to exploit it. Okay, so here is an instance, and when you select an instance and you select the subnet where you wanted to keep it, then if you go to picture, that instance will be dropped to that particular area. Okay, so you have now you know what security group is, now you know what network ACL is, what route tables looks like, and what and where you put an instance, what VPCs are, what network gateways are. Okay, then there is one more thing called VPC endpoint. Okay, what is VPC endpoint and how does VPC endpoint works and why we need a VPC endpoint? We know now Bastion and host server. Let's suppose we wanted to access a private subnet. We wanted to access a private subnet. We can access a private subnet by using, by using a public machine. We have to host a public machine on the top, and then from there we can have the private. We can have a both Bastion host or a customers or a jump server. We can use that to access the private subnet machine. Okay, So we know what VPC is now, we know what NACLs, we know now what security groups, we know now what Bastion host. Then there's one more service called VPC Endpoint. Okay. So if you go
Vasant, I have a
to,
question here.
yeah.
Yeah, both Bastion host and NAT are used to gain access to private subnet, right? To instances in private subnet.
No. NAT gateways
No?
are used in private subnet. No. NAT gateways are used in private subnet so that you can take traffic out from the network gateway, sorry, from the private subnet to access an internet. So you have a private subnet, and in a private subnet you have an instance. Okay, in an
Okay.
instance you might need an internet to access, right? You might need an internet to update your MySQL server or any service you wanted to upgrade, right? You definitely want your internet to be accessed from your private subnet machine. But so to do that, NAT gateway is implemented. Bastion host is for, imagine, Lata, let's say you have a private subnet machine and you're using your
Bastion,
laptop.
I
Okay.
understood. I understood, Vasant. Thank you. I got it
Okay.
now. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Then we have an endpoint option over here. Okay. What endpoint is basically, let's come to the picture again. So let's say that you have an instance, okay, and there are services inside. You have a AWS services, okay. You have an instance, which is a private instance, and this private instance wants to have an access of the AWS service. Okay, let's suppose that there is a S3 bucket, okay, on your on AWS. So if suppose your private instance wants to access a S3 bucket, all right, on the same account, then how this will happen, because it's a private subnet and S3 is there. How this will happen if you don't have an endpoint is, first instance will go to a NAT gateway. Hey, I want to access an S3 bucket. NAT gateway will go and hit the CloudTrail API by going and taking it to the internet gateway. They take the request to the internet gateway, and then from the internet gateway they'll go outside. They'll hit the CloudTrail API of the account, and then they will jump to S3 bucket, and they will have an access over there. Okay, this is how the whole scenario will work. Okay, but there is a risk, right? You are taking the complete request to internet gateway, and then from the internet gateway you are coming back to the same account in order to access the S3 bucket. Okay, to limit this or to overcome this issue, what people came up with VPC endpoint. So if you have a VPC endpoint associated somewhere in your subnet, then what happens is instance will hit the VPC endpoint, and VPC endpoint will connect to the services which is inside the same account. Okay, so VPC endpoint is important because it connects you with the services. Okay, so that way you don't go outside to the internet gateway to access the services on AWS. You will route it inside an VPC. You will route it inside a internal network of AWS in order to access the services of AWS itself. Okay, that will reduce the risk that your request is going outside from the internet and coming to the services of the same account. Okay, so that's what VPC endpoint are for. Okay, so that's what you will do it when you will create it only when there is a need and when your private subnet is trying to access the services of your AWS account.
Hey viewers, trying to get into DevSecOps? Enroll for our DevSecOps certified professional programs and earn the certification that shows you are fit for these technical roles and requirements. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
Okay, that brings the VPC endpoint, Bastion host, NACL security groups, VPC. Okay. Um, then you have a one more term that's in the complete network. So that's completes your complete network on AWS. You have a VPC, you have an NACL, you have a security group, you have a NAT gateway, you have an endpoint. Then you also have this called peering connections. Okay, peering connections is basically when you have a one VPC. Okay, when you have a one VPC and you have another VPC, and you wanted to let's say you have a VPC on my account, and there are services which is on the X account. Okay, I wanted to access the services of X account, and in the X account, that service is again inside some VPC. So what we'll have to do is we have to peer this VPCs we have to cross peer this VPCs so that the services in my VPC can access the services on the X accounts VPC. Okay, at that scenario, we need a VPC peering. Okay, so that's VPC peering, VPC endpoint, bastion host, NACL security group, VPC security, subnet, route table, network gateway, and so on. So that's completes your complete network on AWS. So that's a complete networking, you do in your AWS in order to do a segregation of your resources while creating a VPC. Okay. Any questions so far related to VPC endpoint, bastion host, security groups, NACL, VPC, and so on?
Vasan, can you share that URL which you have seeing the picture, right? So how the VPC has configured private and
Yeah, it's my private repo. But I can share this
okay.
image. You need that image, right? Let me save this image.
No, so if you have the right, so I went through whole whatever you have written there. So I thought that.
Yeah, okay. Okay, what I will do is I'll make this public and I'll give you a link of this. Yeah, you can go through with the this is a wiki I have made it for different services.
Okay.
Right, I'll give you the link. I'll make that public.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, that's about network, guys. You need to know a bit on the network if you are on the security operations. You need to know that because sometimes you will use it more over the security groups or network ACL very oftenly from the point of security, because you might get a request that, hey, I want these IPs to be blocked on my network. Okay, so that you will block it on network ACL. Hey, I want to disable or hey, I want to make sure that this service should be enabled only for this IP, only for my IP. Okay, then you need a security group in that. Okay, allow list, blacklist, for both of that you need network ACL and security group. If you understand the inside and outside of the complete VPC, you understand the network very well in AWS. Okay, that's how the networking goes on in the AWS. What else we have? Let's talk about one more service that's called a serverless infrastructure. Let's talk about that, and then we'll take a lunch break and we'll come back when we'll talk about the other stuff as well. Yes, so we have one more thing. Okay, let's talk about the serverless first. Okay, let's talk about the load balancer first, because that's also a part of we go to EC2 first. So you know what load balancers are, right? You know what load balancers can do. Uh, so as you're working on the security itself and in the operations, so we have a load balancer option here in that as well. We can create load balancers. And to do that, there's a load balancers option. Okay, so you can create load balancers. All right, in AWS, we have a type load balancers you wanted to create of. You have a network load balancers, which works on TCP IP protocols. You have a specific load balancer, which is like a application load balancer, which takes care only the load of application. So it depends on the situation. What you need is you can select a load balancer over here. So when you click on load balancer, you'll have the option whichever you want to go. Classic is completely, as you can see over here, it goes only for HTTPS. If it's a previous generation load balancer, we don't highly recommend it. We use either network or application. If you are having an application, you will use a application load balancer. If you're having a network load balancer which goes on TLS, TCP, and UDP, then you'll use this network load balancer. Either of them you can select and you know load balancers. You can select of the load balancer, you click OK, and then you can define VPC, what will be a subnet, when what load balancer will do, where will be the VPC, where it will come into the picture. That will define this load balancer.
Hey viewers, our Master in DevOps engineering program can help you to hone the skills necessary to succeed in high-level DevOps positions. So, what are you waiting for? Enroll now and earn certification that show you are keeping pace with today's technical roles and requirements. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
Okay, that all you will select it over here, that this which subnet you want it to be, this load balancers to be available, are available multiple zones and can balance the load. Okay, and then you write your load balancer name, that's it. And once it's done, you can configure security group settings. In security settings, you'll do a security group settings things and all that. Let's say Sony day 3. Okay, next security settings, blah blah blah. Your load balancer is not using any secure listener for now. That means we have to make sure that it always goes on HTTPS. So there's a setting where it says to go only for the HTTPS. That's here. You say only secure. Okay, next configure. If you have an access control list or you want a certificate, when we say HTTPS, definitely we need a certificate to be used. Choose a certificate from ACM, like your Amazon certificate manager will take care of the certificate, but we don't have a certificate yet. So we cannot go with HTTPS for now. So let's say previous. We can't go with this. Go with HTTP because we don't have a certificate for now. And then next configure, and then here you will select a security group that will define that what should be done. Next, you'll select the routing, and then once routing has been done, where what all actions, what all people can have an access on your load balancers, that will be a routing. And once it's done, you'll register the target, and it's done. Okay, so we have an option on this, that what load balance you can do. You can create off. You can create off three type of load balancers basically, but we don't use and prefer classic load balancers. Depends on the type of, if you want an application, you will have an application load balancer. If you want a network load balancer, you will have a network load balancer. From the security point of view, what you have to take care of is, while your net load balancers are running, you have to make sure that it's been running on enforcement of HTTPS. Okay, so that encryption being implemented, and the data, when it's moving, it should be flowing up in the HTTPS session. Okay, and I hope you know the load balancer, so I don't have to explain what load balancers can do. Okay, right? If you are not sure what load balancers are, do ping me up. But I believe you're working into an IT and security, you know load balancers much better. Okay, so that's where we have VPC, NACL security group, load balancers, bastion host, and endpoint. Then we also have one more thing called Secret Service Manager. Let me talk to that service as well, and then we'll take a break. So there is one more such thing called Secret Manager. Okay, so Secret Manager is also a very important thing, or a system manager I should write off. Okay, secret manager or a system manager is basically, there is a secret manager where you can store your secrets. Okay, let's say you have a secret stands here for the for, let's say you're having an RDS instance and you wanted to store your RDS credentials like username and password. Generally, developers store them in the code itself by writing them into a config file, which ideally should not happen. So secret manager basically stores that it's easily rotate and manage the secrets of your secrets file. So you can store a secret always in a secret manager. That can include your RDS database credentials. That can include any secret messages you want. Okay, which comes with a 30-day free trial. So if you wanted to store a secret, you can click on store a new secret. What do you want to store secret, as you see? Right, RDS credentials, credentials for database, other type of secrets, right, username, password, and so on. Okay, so So yeah, so make sure you can write username and password, specify username and password to be stored in this. And then if you want encryption to that, you can that, okay, credential for RDS, credentials for documentary, shifts, and so on. So secret managers are basically used to store the RDS credentials so that the next time when when your developer wants to connect it, they will hit the API of AWS and will ask for a secrets which is there on the AWS secret manager. So that's what about um, secret manager, which is called as secret service manager. Apart from storing a secrets on secret manager, you can also store secrets in systems manager as well. In a system managers, we have one server store. Sometimes people also store their secrets in parameter store. You can also store your secrets, which can be in a secure string. Okay, so you can store over here as well. So you have two options to secure your RDS credentials. Either you go with a system manager and you use a parameter store to secure your store your credentials information, or let's say over here you see this is an RDS credential. You can create a parameter, click on that. And there you can write your parameter over your name, whatever you want. You say it's a secure string, and then you write your value which you wanted to secure. And once it's been securely created, I'll show you. Okay, so once it's created, it will look like this. And then if you click show, it will show you, because right now the root I am root admin, and that's how I stored it. You can store it in a JSON format or any other format like the one which I have stored. So basically, we use system manager parameter which we want to use further in AWS from well. So that is service manager. Security point of view, you need to know these two terms as well. That is SSM, secret manager. All right, so we'll talk about serverless infrastructure. What serverless infrastructure is, we'll talk about trusted advisor and see what is CI/CD pipeline and RDS instances. Then we'll do a pen test lab for the Lambda function, and we can look for scripts. Now let me just quickly talk about Lambda thing, and we'll talk about some serverless infrastructure. And once we are done with that, we'll be able to use and we'll see some labs on pen test labs on how we do a Lambda testing and looks for the secrets, and how do we do a list of 3 bucket content and execute RC. Okay, so let me quickly share my screen with that.
Hey viewers, are you looking for formal training on SRE practices? Take our SRE program. This course will teach you how to successfully implement site reliability engineering in the modern day 24/7 services. Kickstart your SRE training today. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
Okay, I hope you can see my screen. Let's go and talk about serverless architecture and what is that. So, and for serverless, we have a Lambda. Okay, so what is serverless? First of all, serverless stands for definitely no server. No server which you maintain. Okay, that doesn't mean that there is no server and everything is running on running in the air. So serverless stands for where you don't have to manage and maintain the server. that's been completely taken care by your AWS for now. Okay, so serverless architecture is basically defines um, where you don't have to worry about the updates, upgrades on the operating system, and you don't see the operating system, by your end. You don't have to do a maintenance on that. That will be completely taken care by your your AWS, okay, over here, or the cloud vendor on the other end. So serverless, on the serverless architecture, one of the major thing which our AWS uses is a Lambda. Lambda is one of the service which AWS uses as a serverless architecture. Okay, so we don't when we created a Lambda, users see that we have a Lambda over here, and right, and from the point of things is Lambda is basically used to perform the actions, or you can run your scripts written on any of the programming language. You can write the scripts over here, and scenarios can vary where people go for serverless infrastructure and they use Lambda um, to do the actions on the application. Okay, and so on. So we have Lambda to perform or to do a set of to do a set of execution of scripts which you want. Okay, for that purpose we use the serverless architecture Lambda. Lambda is a serverless because it works on, it completely works on the serverless infrastructure. You don't see the server on your end, but you just see the environment which is required to run your code. Okay, for example, if you have selected Python, you will be having a Python environment automatically set up for you, and you will run your Python script on as a Lambda function inside a Lambda service, which is a serverless infrastructure. Okay, so having been said, so from the security point of view, Lambda, you will see most probably people are using it. From the security point of view, one thing you have to keep it a note on. It in a Lambda we have this environment variable. Okay, so if you're using a Lambda and someone tells you to pen test a Lambda, what you have to do on the cloud is you have to make sure that your Lambda does not hold any sensitive information in environment variable. Okay, if that happens, I'll show you the impact. What can be the impact if that happens? Okay, so we'll see the impact very soon. But from the security point of view, you have to make sure that there are um, no environment variable being created in the serverless architecture of Lambda. If you really wanted to know what serverless or infrastructure more about it, you can read out some articles or Google it around. You would be familiar with that. But from the security point of view, we wanted to know that environment variable over here, we have to keep it a note that we don't have a we don't have a environment variable holding a sensitive information on our Lambda. Okay, if that happens, what can be the impact? I'll show you. We'll do a lab, and in the lab we'll be able to see that and will be clearly visible, right? So we'll see onto the lab for that part. Give me a second. Okay, so yeah, so that is a Lambda in about serverless infrastructure. Now there is one more. There are two more services which, from the point of security, we need to know while we are doing it, or we are going ahead to we are going into the serverless infrastructure. So we need to know two more services very well. All right, so okay, so we go to a service called ECS and ECR. ECS, Elastic Container Service. So if you know a Docker, you would then I don't have to explain you what ECS service is, because the Docker which you see on your serverless infrastructure, ECS has been following the same. So you can deploy, manage, and scale your Docker containers on ECS. ECS is Elastic Container Service where you put all your Docker images. Okay, you can have your all Docker images and put and segregate them uh, differently in with the creating a clusters on ECS. Okay, and there is a ECR also. ECR is basically a repository, okay, where you put your all images. Like if you know a Docker Hub, then we have a Docker Hub. In Docker Hub, we put all images. We go serverless. We put your all images on Docker Hub. Similarly, you have ECR in AWS where you put all your images. Okay. So from the point of security, what you have to know and why we have to know this two services is because nowadays your developers are very smart and they are working, serverless. They are writing Dockers, they are writing the codes or deploying the application on Kubernetes or Dockers. So we really wanted to secure our Docker or the images which we have. So in the report, in the ECR repository, from the point of security, whenever you feel that there are images which has been coming up, you have to make sure that these images which comes and puts into the repository are scanned, okay, and they don't have any vulnerability. So what you do in that case is, because your ECS, elastic container, which runs your Docker, they pull the images either from Docker Hub or from ECR, okay. Most probably the developers works from the ECR repositories, okay. So even if you have a even if you have developers, or even if you have image written on Docker Hub, okay, so what happens actually is people pull those images and push it to the ECR, um, you know to the ECR repository. ECR repository is nothing but a repository of images, okay. So when you create a repository, from the point of security, you have to ensure to your development team or the operation team that there is a option called image scan on push. This has to be enabled, okay. If it's enabled, what will happen every time your new image is pushed into the ECR repository, those images will be scanned. From the point of security, this will be scanned completely, and if any image has a vulnerability, right, it will be, you will see that image vulnerability on the dashboard itself, that the repository or the image which has been uploaded to this ECR repo has a vulnerability, okay. So from security point of view, on a serverless, you have to make two things in your mind. First, on a Lambda, you should see that environment variable is not set to um, is allowed. Like you don't have to, you have to make sure that this Lambda do not have an environment variable. From the point of ECR, which is elastic compute repository, where we all keep our images, which is later on the stages your ECS service is going to pull up from the ECR. So you have to make sure that these images are scanned always when any of the developer or any of the people push images to your ECR services, so that you have a list of vulnerabilities, or you know that there is a vulnerable image which has been intentionally used in a cluster, and that can later on lead to a exploitation, okay. So these two things and these two services on a serverless, you have to keep that mind in from the point of security, okay.
Thanks for watching. Want to study further? Join our training programs today.